Hey, Motorman here. If you're not familiar with this channel, I do a lot of stuff about Harley Davidsons. I'm a retired police motor officer and, of course, the maker of the Ride Like a Pro video, biggest selling motorcycle video in the world. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson that on Harley Davidsons that you might not be aware of. You know, if you're maybe 30 to 45, you probably didn't or weren't into motorcycles back in the late 90s. Up until about, I guess 2008. But anyway, I'm going to get right to it. So in '99, I went through motor school. I was on a Honda Ace Tourer, and the reason the agency bought that was because they were, I think, like $2,000 or $3,000 cheaper than the Harleys were at the time. And the major had a friend who owned a Honda dealership. So they got a good deal on the bikes, not thinking that they have to convert it to a police bike. It cost them thousands. By the time they got done, the Ace Tourers were probably about $500 or $600 more than a Road King police bike that already had all the equipment on it. But anyway, so I'm riding Harley Davidsons for work from '99 on, but I would never buy one. And here's the reason why. From about 1990 or so, up until 2008, when the bottom fell out of the economy, Harley Davidson motorcycles were expensive. In fact, the people who talk about Harley Davidsons, they say they're too much money now. They're actually cheaper than they've ever been. I'm going to do another video about that. I did one in 2021, but I'm going to do another video about that because facts are facts. If you account for inflation, Harleys are cheaper now than they ever were, and that's not accounting for the markup that Harley Davidsons used to put on their motorcycles when the supply did not meet the demand. So anyway, this is how it worked back in, I think it might have even started in the early 90s, but the supply of the motorcycles did not meet the demand. People wanted Harley Davidson motorcycles, and they were willing to pay just about anything for them. So the dealers, of course, you got more customers than you got bikes, did all kinds of things. First of all, you had to put your name. Some dealers had you put your name on a waiting list, and you ordered whatever Harley you wanted in whatever color you wanted. But whatever came in, they went down the list, and they'd call you up. Well, you wanted a red Road King. We've got a blue Heritage. Do you want that one instead? If you don't want it, we got a list of 200 people that do. Oh, how much is it? Well, we're only going to charge you $5,000 over list, and you got to buy $2,000 worth of accessories, or you can't buy it. So people would actually go along with that, and they would pay that extra money. The finance companies at the time, Harley owned their own finance company. They would finance the whole thing as long as you had halfway decent credit. You didn't even need a down payment. They'd finance you for 7 years, whatever it took to get you to buy it and get the payment to where you could afford it. Now, there were people who could afford the motorcycles, and those are the first people that started buying Harley Davidsons like crazy. And like I said, when you have a supply and demand problem, well, it's not really the dealer's fault. If you're willing to pay $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 over list price for something, the dealer should oblige you. This is how the free market works. And this lasted for quite a few years, and I could tell you stories. I know there was one dealership down in Clearwater. They charged you $1,200 just to put your name on the list. And that didn't get you $1,200 off the price when the Harley came in. That was just a fee to put your name on the list. After that, they would charge you. You had to buy then a couple of $1,000s worth of accessories, or I don't remember the exact figure. But it was just crazy. And then as they opened up the new factory that made the big V-twins, the supply started to meet the demand, and then the economy sort of crashed in 2008. We had a recession, and then the bottom fell out. But what dealers were doing with these huge markups, a dealer up in Tennessee told me, he said, well, we didn't have enough bikes, so what we would do is we would buy a motorcycle from a dealer who actually had one, especially in the colder areas, up in Maine or wherever, where they don't sell a lot of bikes in the wintertime. He said, and we would pay that dealer $1,000 over MSRP just to get the bike. So, of course, once we got it, we paid $1,000 over. There was shipping. We had to send a guy up there to pick up the motorcycle. So we would mark them up another $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 because that was the only way we made money. We just didn't have enough bikes to sell to the people who wanted them. So I understand what the dealer is saying. He's paying a lot more for the motorcycle. He's going to charge you a lot more for it. Then in 2008, like I said, the economy goes into a recession. Everything turns around. People started getting their motorcycles repossessed, or they're just taking them to the dealership and saying and handing it over. The value of the used Harley Davidson went way down. Prior to that, from about 1990 to about 2006 or 7, you could trade your Harley in and get exactly what you paid for it because the dealer needed a supply of motorcycles. So if you wanted to buy a new one, you could trade your bike in. They'd give you exactly what you paid for it, and of course, then you had to pay $5,000 or $6,000 over MSRP for the new one. So it sort of equaled out. I know a guy who wanted a Springer back in, I think it was 2000 or 2001, and he lives here in Pasco County. He wanted a purple one, and he waited like a year. The bike still hadn't come in at the local dealership, so he heard that the dealer in Tampa had one. So he goes down there and he's got the cash. I think the bike was like $17,500. They jacked it up $5,000, but he's got the money. He's willing to pay it. They're doing all the paperwork, and the guy looks at his license and realizes that he lives in Pasco County, not Hillsborough County. That's Tampa. He says, "You can't buy this bike here. We don't want your money." I said, "What do you mean?" So you can only buy from your local dealer. This was like a monopoly that the dealers themselves had set up, and understanding that if you didn't live in the county where you were trying to buy the bike, they just wouldn't sell it to you. And a lot of dealers wouldn't even sell you a Harley at any price unless you had a Harley to trade in. That's how bad it was. So for me personally, I have a rule. I never pay over manufacturer's suggested retail price. I figure the manufacturer knows what the bike is worth, and that's why they price it as such. And granted, that might be too low. If people are willing to pay thousands over that price, well, maybe the manufacturer is charging too low a price for their motorcycle. But the dealer knows if he could sell it and charge $5,000 over, yeah, that's what he's going to do. He's in business to make money. But personally, even though I was riding a Harley Davidson Road King at work from 1999 till 2004, I liked the bike. I really enjoyed it. I liked it much better than the Honda. They actually stood up much better as well. The Hondas aren't made for police duty, and they would start burning oil. I mean, really a quart of oil every 200 or 300 miles. We had a lot of problems. We had 3 of them. They all had the same problems. They just weren't made for the rigors of police work. But anyway, I wouldn't buy one because I wasn't going to pay anything over MSRP. In fact, I wanted to pay less than MSRP. So in 2004, Harley Davidson said, well, if you're a police officer, either presently working or a fireman or retired, we're going to sell you any of our Harley Davidsons. They had, I think it was the Road King, the Ultra, and Electra Glide, whatever, and we're going to sell them to you for $2,000 under list price. So I get on the internet, I find one up in the Panhandle here in Florida, and they've got it was just, I think, 2 colors that you could get. It was blue or blue and silver. There was a dark blue one up there. So I call them up right away. I says, are you honoring that $2,000 under MSRP? And they said, yes, we will. I said, do you charge anything over that? He said, just freight, whatever it was like $400 at the time. He says, if you put a deposit now with your credit card and send me your police ID, fax it to me, I'll sell you the bike for $2,000 under MSRP. So that's what I did, and that's when I bought my first Harley Davidson, was back in 2004. Really enjoyed the bike, good looking bike. I even had to put wide white walls on it before I picked it up. But I was very happy with that, just that I was not going to pay over MSRP, and I still won't today. Right now, as I've told people, it's a buyer's market. If you go to any Harley Davidson dealership, they've got showrooms full of 2024 models. So the new ones that are coming out, the 2025s, at least the information they've released so far is exactly the same as the 2024s, except they've gone up between $1,700 and $2,000. And the only difference is different colors that are available. Some are the same colors, and some are totally different colors. So if you're in the market and you want to buy a new Harley Davidson, now's the time to do it. Get a brand new 2024, and most dealers will discount them. I'm not going to say how much because I don't know the exact figures, but I've heard as high as $5,000 off MSRP at some dealers. I've also heard from people who put it in the comment section, I went to my local dealer, I told them I wanted a new Harley Davidson, and they wanted $2,000 over. That doesn't make any sense. When your dealership is sitting with 50 motorcycles and they got the 2025s coming out, in fact, they've already shipped them. Some dealers have them already, but starting Tuesday, just about every dealer is going to have brand new 2025s. There's no way he's going to charge you over MSRP, or you'd have to be an idiot to do that, or try to get over MSRP for a motorcycle that's going to be, in just a couple of days, you're going to have the 2025 models out. So a lot of people just put stuff in the comment section, and they really don't know what they're talking about. I've heard so many times that Harleys used to be for the blue-collar worker. Well, the average blue-collar worker couldn't afford a new Harley Davidson. They would buy used ones. Maybe if you saved up your money for long enough, you could afford a Harley Davidson, but they've always been more expensive than other makes. Back in '75, I was looking at a Sportster, and I think the Sportster was like $2,600, and I looked at a Honda CB750, and it was $1,900. Now, that price difference back then was a lot of money. Back then, I was making pretty good money working in construction, making $200 a week, but I still wasn't willing to pay that much more for a motorcycle. So that's what I've got to say today. I hope you learned something by this. If you didn't know about the heyday of Harley Davidson motorcycles, well, now you know. That's the way it used to be. So don't complain about what's happening now when actually they'll discount brand new Harley Davidsons and you can get a really good price on one. And of course, in the used market, prices have come way down. They're not holding the value the way they used to because there's so many used low mileage Harley Davidson bikes, 2020, 22, 23, and people are selling them fairly cheap because they got to compete with a discounted price of a brand new one. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. Until next time.